All right, so you should have this data on your chart. And if you don't have this data on your chart, you can freeze it and copy this. But the volumes of the syringe went from 40 down to 20 and then up to 50. And on the actual reading, it was zero when we had it open to the atmosphere. So I kind of opened it up to the atmosphere. But there's no such thing as zero pressure on Earth. There's always some pressure. So we replaced the zero with a 101 kPa because that's what we learned was the standard pressure at sea level was 101.3 kPa. So we're going to just go with 101. All right. So the reason we're using kPa is because that translates well from HPA. So there are 10 HPAs in each kPa. So if you just took these readings, and again, if you were paying attention, um, each one of these hash marks was 50 when you were trying to measure the pressure. So if each one of those hash marks is 50, then you should have something like this. Again, if you don't have this data, then you can just copy this data and then do what I'm doing now. But the point is, the pressure is not zero. It's 101 when it's open to atmospheric pressure. And then when we made the volume bigger than that, it reduced the pressure. It said it was negative 200, but when then you convert that into kPa, um, which is here, it's the number here divided by 10 and then added to the 101, you would get about 81 kPa. All right. So now what we're going to do is create a chart. So we're going to insert. So going to the tab here, we're going to hit insert and then chart. We want this chart to be a scatter plot, which is good. And we're going to move it over here. Now it sort of assumed all sorts of things. So I'm going to delete this. Remove all series actually would be just as easy. All right. So the x-axis, right? So the thing that goes horizontal, we want that to be volume, and that's what is figured out already. So the volume is the x-axis, so that's fine. The y-axis is what the series is. So we're going to add a series, and we would like that to be the kPa. So this is already offered. If it's not offered, you can also just say add series and click on this data range and then select the kPa yourself. So that's another way to do that if it doesn't offer it immediately. So now we have pressure on the y-axis and volume on the x-axis, and we can customize this. We can give the graph a title, so it actually already says the title, but we got to fix that title, I guess. So let's go to the chart title. So that should be the pressure in kPa versus the volume in milliliters. So that is what this is. This is the pressure in kPa, and then this is the volume in milliliters. That's the way you're supposed to. I'm going to tell you this because people are going to get upset if you don't know it, apparently. But whatever the y-axis is the first thing you name your chart, and whatever the x-axis is the second thing. All right. If we want to customize, well, let's actually do the horizontal axis. So the x-axis, we want that title to be volume in milliliters. And there that is. And then that'll show up there. And then the vertical axis, or this y-axis, we want to call that the pressure in kPa. There we go. All right, so now look how pretty that looks. Now we also want to customize the axis. Currently, we don't have zero involved, specifically with the volume. So we can set the minimum value for zero. The maximum we went to was 50. So we can go up to 55 and do that. Oops. I don't know what happened there. So I'm going to undo that. I don't know what button I pushed, but you can always hit the undo to undo whatever you just did. All right. So there's our thing. That looks good. So that looks similar to what we had when we talked about this, even though this is pressure versus volume reversed. We still have a nice graph like that. Now, if we want to have that trend line, we can edit the chart. The trend line is going to be in the customize area. We want to play with the series, And if you scroll down, you'll see this trend line. So what I did was I hit the 3 buttons here to edit the chart. And then I scrolled down to, I went to customize, and then I went to series. And if you scroll down to the bottom of series, it'll say insert a trend line. So it's going to try to put a linear one in. As we can see, that's not really a linear relationship. So what we're going to want to do is either go with an exponential, or it seems like a polynomial fits best. So I'm going to go with that. So there you go. So if you have this graph, that's a great start. So we can move that by just kind of clicking it and shoving it over here, and then scroll back up to our data. Now remember, we said that the volume times the pressure equals a constant. So we can see this at work. So if we put our cursor into this first box and we want to let the spreadsheet do some math, so we're going to hit that, and then we're going to hit the equals on the keyboard. And that's going to let the computer know that you want to do some math. And the math we want it to do is we want to multiply the volume times the pressure. So to determine that we want to multiply it by the volume, we're going to just click this box, and it's going to automatically import that and populate it. And then we're going to want to hit Shift 8 so that we hit that times. That means that little star thing. That means times to a computer. And we want to multiply the volume by the pressure. So we're going to click this box. So what we just did is let the computer know to multiply the volume times the pressure. So again, I clicked this box, I hit the equal sign, and then I hit volume. Then I went times, Shift 8 to get that little star, and then I hit the pressure. And now I have that. And then if you hit enter, it's going to do the math for you. So 50 times 81 is 4050. And then because it's a smart computer, it's going to say, do you want me to fill all this up? So you can say, yes, this is what we want. If accidentally you didn't do that, let me show you a little trick. If you clicked the function that you want, and then you click on that dot and drag it, it'll do it for you for all the rest. So you could have done that one of two ways. So as you can see, this number is pretty much 4,000 when you multiply the pressure times the volume. All right, so that just shows that that's a constant. Now we want to do the graph where 1 over volume versus pressure is a straight line, because we want to turn this strange line into a straight line. So we're going to do that by turning all these volumes into 1 over volume. So the same thing, we want the computer to do some math. So we're going to click on that first one. And to let the computer know we want it to do math, we're going to hit the equal sign on the keyboard. And then we're going to say we want to take 1. So I just push 1 on the keyboard, and the divided by, the one above the question mark next to your shift key. So that's 1 over, and then I want volume. So I'm just going to click that button and hit enter. So now this number is 1 divided by 50, and then again, it wants to autofill. So if you click this, it'll do it. If you don't click that, you can go back to the box you did and then pull that down and drag it, and you'll get the same answer. So again, click on the 1 over V box, hit the equal sign to let the computer know you want to do math, put 1 and the divided sign from the keyboard, and then click the box with the volume, hit enter, and then highlight that box and drag the blue dot here down the whole column, and it'll autofill that. All right, so now we want to insert a chart. So basically, this is going to be a straight line because hold on a second. Let's see if I can get this to work. Just okay, whatever. All right. Because if PV equals a constant, so if pressure times volume equals a constant, and then we divide both sides by volume, so divided by volume and divided by volume, we get pressure equals 1 over V times the constant. And then that is starting to look like, actually, let me do it in another way. So pressure is equal to a constant times 1 over V. And that should look like Y equals mx from your math class, right? Y equals mx plus b. That's a straight line. The constant is now the slope. The x-axis is 1 over v, and the y-axis is pressure. So that's why we're going to do that, is to sort of make that straight line thing. All right, so getting back to this, we want to insert chart, and this thing will pop up. You can drag it over here so it's kind of out of your way. So again, the way I did that is I hit insert and then scroll down to chart. Now I got this thing and I need to edit my chart. The x-axis is going to be the 1 over v. So it asks me to select a range. Sometimes it might just say, which of the things do you want? So I'm going to select this range, my 1 over v, as my x-axis. As my y-axis, I want to add a series, and I want to highlight my pressures as my y-axis. All right, so again, it's put in the wrong kind of graph. We can go up here and select the scatter plot right here. So now we got this, and if I put that away, you can see that looks more like a straight line than it did before, where we have more of this curve line. So it's going up like we would hope. Another way to do this, let me just delete this real quick, is if you highlight everything and then you say insert chart. All right, it's going to do all sorts of things for you. We don't want a column chart. We want a scatter plot. So we will pick that there. And we also don't want all these series. So the x-axis is currently, yeah, that doesn't helpful actually. That's not that helpful. I'm going to undo all that. That was helpful once, but apparently I got too much going on now. All right. So if we just insert chart, move that to the side. For the x-axis, we want the 1 over v. So we want this to be our x-axis. And for the y-axis, which we're calling a series, we're going to want the pressure. And hit OK. And again, we don't want a column chart. We want a scatter plot. So we'll scroll down here, change it to a scatter plot. And there it is. And then we can do some editing as well. We can customize it so that the axis, so we want the title of the chart to be the y-axis, which is pressure, versus the x-axis, which is 1 over volume. So that's that. And then we want the horizontal axis, or the x-axis, to be called volume, 1 over volume, I guess. And then we want the vertical axis, or this one, to be called pressure in kPa. There we go. So there you have that. And then if you want to insert the trend line, again, you can do that by hitting this, edit chart, customize. Trend line would be found in the series. Scroll down, there's a trend line. It's going to default to linear, and this time we do want linear because that's our expectation for atmospheres versus 1 over volume. There you go. So if you got that, it's all good. Turn that in. If you have any questions, I'll be back. But that is Boyle's Law.